It was a night marked by mistakes for the New York Football Giants. In a picture, that was their night. A free run late in this one. Richie James can't squeeze it, had 6, but it wouldn't really have mattered. 38-7 is your final as lunch money exchanges hands against wills, as this was a thorough bullying. The Eagles rushed it for 268 yards, which is the most in playoff franchise history since 1949. They sacked Daniel Jones 5 times, most in a playoff game since 1970. Historic levels of dominance by Philadelphia, led by Jalen Hurts, who, frankly, had to turn around and hand that dang thing off. 16-24, $154, another 34 on the ground. It was Kenneth Gainwell going north of 100 yards for the first time in his career, punctuating it with a late touchdown run. It's the Birds flying high and moving on. All right, let's break it down with the players. Douzable, Bryant, McFadden. Guys, only so many angles to come at this one when it's this thorough of a domination by Philadelphia. We were looking to maybe learn some things about a team that we hadn't seen for a couple weeks, a quarterback we haven't seen meaningful reps for over a month. Let's call it, B-Mac. What did you feel you learned about the Eagles in this one?
Well, Jalen Hurts, he's healthy, right? I think that was the biggest concern coming into this matchup in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. What's up with Jalen Hurts? Is he prepared to go? Will we see the Jalen Hurts that we saw before the shoulder injury? Will he be more involved in the running game? Yes, he is healthy. We saw more from him. I saw more from him in regards to running the football than I thought I would see. You didn't necessarily need a big game from Jalen Hurts in throwing the football because in totality, the running game was at an all-time high for the Eagles. But that was the bigger concern for me, and I walked away from this matchup seeing that Jalen Hurts is healthy, and when he is healthy, this is still one of the best teams in the National Football League. Remember, they had the best record for quite some time, and then we saw a drop-off in production when Jalen Hurts was not in the lineup. But when you put him in the lineup and he is healthy, this is one of the best teams that's currently left in the playoffs, and they were able to display that type of skill set tonight.
Yeah, B-Mac and Moose, we saw one of the most complete, if not the most complete team in the NFL. B-Mac, you talked about it. This team had kind of dropped off the last few weeks with Jalen Hurts being hurt, but he came back in this game. He started out the game efficiently from the pocket, using his arm, right? Not really using his legs. He started using his legs more in that second and third corner. We saw him scamper for a touchdown, late in that second quarter. But he was just a fit with the ball. Didn't throw for a whole bunch of yards. I think threw for 154. Had the deep shot right there to Devontae Smith. But the RPO game, man, it puts teams in binds. You seen Dallas Goedert right there getting positive yards on a RPO. He put Xavier McKinney in the bind in the RPO like 3 or 4 times in this game. It's because of that mesh point and then the danger of Jalen Hurts potentially keeping the ball. When you're that linebacker, you're that safety, it puts you at odds because you don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to keep it with his athletic ability, or is he going to throw that flat route to Goddard, or he's going to throw a slant route to A.J. Brown. So the offense was cooking for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Moose, you talked about it. I mean, this was bully ball. They punched the Giants in the mouth. I remember specifically watching this game in the second quarter where Kenneth Gainwell ran back-to-back plays for a gain, I think, of 9 and then 10 yards, and Dexter Lawrence wasn't in the game. They put Dexter Lawrence in the game, and nothing changed. They ran it right down their throat even when he was in the game. So this was just a bully job by the Philadelphia Eagles, who knew their quarterback probably wasn't 100%. But even when they dropped back and passed, they protected them really well. And oppositely, right, that defensive line from the Eagles, that was going to be the story of this game. What was the Giants' offensive line going to do? Because back in Week 14, they abused them, and Hassan Reddick started off early with those 2 sacks on the Giants' first drive. They had to stop them on 4th and 8, and he got a sack on that. After that, it was everybody had their ears pinned back, ended up with 5 sacks on the day. So both of the trenches for the Eagles dominated this game. That's where the story was in this game.
Yeah, it started up front, but this one largely the story of the hammer and the nail. Nail can't do nothing. Hammer came out swinging. Yeah. And I think that's the way we frame this 60 minutes of football, but it's most jarring when you look at the last 60 minutes of football because very much in Minnesota, this Giants team was the hammer in that matchup. Not trying to make any grand statements about Minnesota right now, Deuce, but were you just surprised in, let's say, the lack of will, the lack of response to punch number 1 that the Giants showed in this?
Yeah, I think the difference was, Moose, they never really took a punch. I mean, yes, Minnesota scored on its first drive, but after that, the Giants kind of had control in that game last week. But this game was totally different. The Eagles had control from the onset, and it's like after they took the haymaker from the Eagles, the Giants just never fought back. They never got that left hand up to block the punches that the Eagles were swinging. And you talked about the missed opportunities. We saw the one with Richie James. I go back to the one with Darius Slayton when he beat, James Bradbury off the line of scrimmage, and then Daniel Jones underthrew the ball and allowed James Bradbury to come back. That could have been a potential 6 or an explosive play right there when they were down, I believe either it was 14 or 21-0 to get them back in the game. When you're playing a team that is well balanced like the Eagles, those opportunities you have to hit on because you're only going to get few and far in between. Isaiah Hodgins, they didn't really get him involved in this game. He essentially becomes the number 1 receiver for the Giants. We really didn't hear from him there. I think he maybe had 1 catch on the day. So it was a tough day for Daniel Jones and his offense. Too many missed opportunities and then too many negative plays. There were so many times they were starting in 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 12 on tackles for losses when the running backs were running the football. This Eagles defensive line did a really good job. They knew that the Giants in Week 18 ran the ball really well against them. They put a presence piece on, stopping the run. That way they can get after the quarterback on 3rd down.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't surprised. I felt like if Jalen Hurts was healthy, this team is 10 times better than the Giants in regards to talent.
Okay.
Production, consistency, and the most improving thing in regards to what we witnessed in tonight's matchup, just the nature of the beast in the trenches for the Eagles on both sides of the football field. Remember when they were dealing with injuries in the mid part of the year? No Jordan Davis, couldn't stop the ground and pound attack.
Run defense lacked.
You brought in Joseph, you brought in Sue, and then we started to see more continuity involved in that side of the football. And then, of course, getting Lane Johnson back was huge for them. And that's why we saw the type of football that we're speaking of in regards to bully ball, because they are healthy in the trenches. So when you're healthy in the trenches, no question, you can just take the air out of the opposing team on both sides of the football field. And remember I said during pregame, I felt like this game would be closer to the first meeting between the Giants and the Eagles than the second meeting. You remember the first meeting in New York? A 20-point win of something like that, if I'm not mistaken, for the Eagles. Right. And then, of course, the last meeting, they only won by 6 points. I felt like if Jalen Hurts would be healthy, this game would trend more to the first meeting than the second, and, of course, it happened.
Total sum of the parts, 108-45. Philadelphia outscores New York this season, so there's work to be done this offseason for the Giants. We'll get there in a moment, but I'm sitting down with a pair of players who lived in the film room. You've been on the right side of these types of games, and I'm sure you've been on the wrong side of them as well, fellas. What's Philadelphia got to learn from this tape, Mac? Because it's going to be one of those film sessions where it's a party, you're kikiing, everyone's got the drinks, the snacks, you're having a good time, you're not running too many reps over and over. What can they take away from this tape from the learning standpoint?
When we play our game, nobody can beat us. The only thing that can slow us down is us. If we're not dialed in, focused, we might have an opportunity where we don't put forth our best effort. But if we're dialed in and focused, nobody can mess with us. They're the best in the world in what they've done to get to this moment in the season. So if you look at this team, and Leger, you talked about it, one of the more complete teams currently in the playoffs. Remember, they were basically the best complete team throughout the regular season until that injury happened to their star quarterback. I mean, they got a 1,000-yard, 1,200-yard rusher, a 1,100-yard receiver, another 1,400-yard receiver, a quarterback who was clearly in the running for an MVP-like award before the injury. They had 70 sacks on the defensive side. They're tops in pass defense.
Complete.
I mean, they got corners who made the Pro Bowl team. You got corners who, heck, James Bradbury made an all-pro, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
They have talent.
Yeah.
So what they should walking away from this game, they should say, look, listen, we can achieve everything we dreamed of if we just stay the course, because nobody can slow them down except the Eagles. That's it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with B-Mac. When you watch this film, and we kind of talked about this too, on paper, this is probably the most complete team in the NFL. And I think they flexed some of their muscle today against the New York Giants and showed everybody that we are that team that everybody picked to go to the Super Bowl earlier in this year when we're winning 10 and 11 games in a row. Then our quarterback got hurt, and we still finished 14-1 with him as the starter. The only thing is, I would say they would probably watch some of that film in the third quarter where there was a little bit of a lull where the Giants were able to score and then also stop them on 2 consecutive drives from scoring. I remember watching the game and, hearing Pam Oliver saying she heard the Eagles players talking at half saying, It's 0-0. I know we're up 28-0, but we can't allow them to come back in that game. Well, there were some opportunities for the Giants to make plays and potentially get back into that game. So that's something they'll definitely watch, because that's the 49ers team, and you let them back in the game, it could be a whole different ball game, just because of they match up pretty well as far as the skill position players, and even on the offensive defensive line as far as the physicality. Man for man, they match up a lot better than the Giants team. I think a lot of people felt that this Giants team was like a Cinderella team, right? They had already accomplished almost everything they could accomplish this season, especially because they're talent deficient, but they play with a lot of heart. And I think everybody felt if the Eagles team showed up, the Eagles team that we expected all year long, the team that was the #1 seed in the NFC, that it was going to be a long day for the Giants, and that's what happened. They went out there, played a complete game, and one thing they can really hang their hat on, guys, was in that fourth quarter, they had a 14-play drive that was over 70 yards that lasted almost 8 minutes. You're talking about closing out a game, B-Mac. We call that the 4-minute drill, right? We want to close out the game right. Now, they didn't finish with a touch. They kicked a field goal, but they ate almost 8 minutes of clock right there. So that's something that Nick Sirianni, James Steichen, and the offense can really hang their hat on.
It is physicality, it is mentality, and it is execution at the end of the day that has taken these Philadelphia Eagles to this moment as they await to see who their opponent will be in the NFC title game. As Jalen Hurts said earlier this week, it's the expectation. They expect this of themselves. I don't know that we expected the New York Giants to be in this moment, and I'm not sure that it's the note, obviously, that they want to end the season on. It's that sour note. But some questions here for the head coach. Goes for it on 4th and 8 early, gives a short field, maybe sent the wrong message to his team. And then late in the game, down 3 touchdowns, punts it on 4th down. Just sort of a disconcerted, disconnected effort here from Bryant Douzable. Very well could be our coach of the year, Deuce. But when we're talking about his decision-making in this moment, did it seem like the moment was too big, or you get down by this much and you really don't have a game script for it?
Yeah, let's start off with the second part you talked about, going for it on 4th and 8. My thing is he's been aggressive all year long. The only thing is you just got sacked the play before that, right? So now it's 4th and 8. Your offensive tackle just got beat. You're worried about his confidence. And then he gets beat again. And Hassan Reddick is the guy that gets the sack. Well, if you have an opportunity to pin the Eagles back deep within the 10-yard line, you punt the ball right there. And your defense, again, it hasn't been the best defense in the world. And I was also surprised a little bit about Wink Martindale's, his plan coming into this game, because he really didn't blitz as much those first 2 drives. I was a little bit surprised. He kind of blitzed almost every play. In Week 18, yes, I know he had the 3s in there, but, that's who he's been all year long. Live and die by that blitz. Well, he came out kind of timid, only 4-man rushing in the first 2 drives, and Jalen Hurts picked them apart. But going back to Bryant Douzable going for it on 4th down, I'm not mad at that choice, but I just think once you get sacked right there, right, knocks you back even more. You can't kick the field goal. I think you punt the ball away right there because it's still so early in the game. See if you can get them pinned back, play the field position game, see if you can get a short field so your offense can get back out there. But, Moose, there was no excuse being down 21 points and deciding not to go for it, especially after you had already scored the drive before. And then when we get the ball back, that's when you want to go for it on 4th down with less time on the clock. Like, that was, I think, his biggest mistake of this game. Once you're down by 21, you score a touchdown, get the ball back, see if you can get some momentum going and pick up another first down to potentially keep you in the game. Because to me, that was when the game ended. When they punted the ball away down 21, there was no way they were going to be able to come back in this game.
Yeah, I didn't understand his logic. I didn't understand his decision ability. Early in the ball game, you saw how fast and how easy it was for the Eagles to drive the length of the football field to score. Leger, you talked about it. On 3rd down, your tackle get beat. Now it's 4th and 8, basically midfield. Punt the football. Right. Punt the football. Give your defense enough grass to defend instead of coming out there basically midfield and you're standing on eggshells, right, as a defender for the Giants. You don't get that. Instantly, the momentum is shift all in favor of the Eagles because they had great field position to be able to at least put 3 points on the scoreboard. No, they put 7. It's too early in the ball game to make that type of decision. If it was 4th and 4, 4th and 3, makes more sense. Yeah. It's 4th and 8, and you're playing against a team that has been known to put pressure on quarterbacks. We've been harping about 70 sacks all day long leading up to this ball game. You faced this team 2 times already, so you know how prolific they've been in regards to dominating the edges of your offensive lineman unit. So I felt like that was a blow that the Giants, they were never able to overcome because you saw what happened, 14 points.
Yep.
And then, of course, the snowball effect became a big-time thing.
It will be a lasting thought for the Giants and for their fan base, but it does not take away from what that head coach and that team accomplished with that roster that I think exceeded all expectations this season. Deuce, Mac, great work as always, as we will be back at the link for the NFC title game.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.